Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage. Today we are working on the 39 Forgotten Hot Rod project. So the last time, you may remember, worked on getting that battery tray area all filled in, and we got both of our kind of crude modifications that were done to the car back in the 50s repaired and looking good, and we're moving on now. So the next thing we need to do, and actually it's probably the last major metal work we need to do for the car, is making the toe board sections for the car. Originally the car would have had wood in those areas, and obviously that was all falling apart when we took the car apart, or was not even there. And what I'm going to do is actually work on making some metal toe boards that are also removable, so if we need to service anything around the transmission or back of the engine, we can take those out and get to those. So I'm going to work on getting some metal cut out, and we'll show you how to make some simple toe boards for the 39. A couple little things I did before doing this talking part here is so we had this, this was the tunnel, the original tunnel that was in the car that we had blasted recently, and you could see it opened up a lot of Swiss cheese on this side. It looked like it was the better of the two that I had. Turns out they were both probably just as bad. So we will have to address this at some point. But what I did is locked it down in with 2 zip screws to hold that in place. I relief cut on the bends or on the flanges on both sides and bent it up so it matches there. So it's sitting over top of my piece I made. Took this cardboard, made this little template, and what I'm doing is I'm pushing down on it to kind of show me where my bend line needs to be to create this piece and make it all flow with everything going on. So what you may notice, I'll try and get my head out of the way here, is we have a bend line that matches right up with my bend that I made on the tunnel section, factory tunnel section. And then what it does is it actually kind of, when I'm just pushing down, it naturally creates a bend right up along here. So I know that that's what I need to do with the metal, is kind of put a little, the bend or line will be right there basically. And what I need to do, since this has a curve to it right here, is I'm probably gonna have to stretch this area out either in a sandbag or the English wheel to kind of give it a curve and match what we already made, and then that will kind of lay over top of that. Now this piece is probably about the size we need, because I want it to line up with the top of the original tunnel there. And then also that gives us a little edge here where it kind of goes into the corner, so everything will kind of fit together nicely. There's a little bit of overlapping metal here, but I think it'll be okay actually. With everything overlapping, it'll sit nice and tight, and we're kind of closing up all the gaps. So I'm going to work on cutting this piece out of metal, and then we're going to work on trying to transferring this bend line here, and then I will kind of stretch this area out, wheel it out to get it smoothed out, and then that should, hopefully we'll have something that blends, and then from there I'll kind of see if we need to roll any beads in it. I'm not sure if we will or not, but worst case we'll just put like 1 or 2 little beads in it to strengthen it up. But just by doing that, I think we'll give it a lot of strength, but we will see. So we'll see once we get this piece fitting pretty good without the beads, and then we'll make a decision on what we're doing, if we need to throw it in the bead roller. Alright, so you guys saw me use the hammer to and the sandbag to knock this bulge in the panel. I was going to use the English wheel, but I actually realized it was probably a little easier to use the Planishing hammer, so I threw my handheld Planishing hammer in the vise, and I'm just going to quickly see if I can smooth out these, the big dents in this, and see if we can get the shape smoothed out. Then we can test fit it, see how it's looking, and kind of go back and forth. So I do have ear protection for the guys that like to yell at me about safety. But so we're gonna make some noise. Alright, so I swapped around some dies here, and what I have is the new Eastwood motorized bead roller forming die kit. Comes with a bunch of different tipping dies, so this is the 1/2-inch die that I'm going to use to just tip this edge just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is actually run it through here. I have a soft lower die. This is one of my skateboard wheels. The kit comes with a slightly harder durometer, soft quote-unquote lower wheel. I want to use this even softer wheel. I have a little skateboard wheel that I bought that's even softer, that's good for doing this type of stuff. So what I'm going to do is actually run it on this line here and tighten this down, run it on the line, and it should help me kind of tip it up. And I'm going to put just a light upward pressure on the paddle, have it dig in just a little bit, and should be able to get it to tip just a little bit for me. So feed it through. I'm going to put a little pressure here up. That will help it kind of fold. And I'm using the wide die, so we have kind of a wider bend, if you will, rather than the sharp tipping wheel that I would normally use. We want something that's more like a little wider of a radius for the actual bend. There we go. So that actually kind of just pushed it out just a little bit like we wanted. And if I need to go more, I can stretch this edge and pull a little harder, and it'll get it to kind of go out. But that should be a good start. I'm going to test fit it and see where we're at. Alright, so I did some trimming on the panel and got it fitting a little bit better, but I didn't like the super hard line. Not super hard, but I had a little too sharp of a line for what I wanted. I wanted something that was more like a gradual, almost like a reverse curve type deal. So I decided to just kind of smooth it out a little bit. So I already did 1 or 2 passes through, but what I'm doing is running just below our bend line here with the English wheel just below, but upside down, to try and basically get this panel to come out but still go around like that. So I'm turning it upside down and I'm rolling it just underneath our line and have light pressure on the wheel, and I'm rolling through and kind of just trying to get it to have more of a gentle belt like radius in the panel there. So I'm going to put a little bit of pressure to try and get it to kind of like a fulcrum point and try and get it to sort of go in the direction I want. Kind of like we were doing with the bead roller. What we're doing is we're creating more of a gentle roll out, and then I can kind of just adjust this outer edge to match the shape we want. But what we're doing is just kind of, instead of it being a sharp line, we just want it to kind of flow out like this, and then it'll have a slight curve at the top to match the shape of the patch that we made, or the bulge in the panel. So like I said, I'm running it through with very little pressure. There is a little bit of pressure, so we're stretching a little bit. But what I'm trying to do is trying to pull down a little bit as I'm rolling to kind of get the panel to go in the direction I want it to go. And I have a pretty high crown wheel in here because I want it to be touching in a pretty tight area. So now it's kind of getting that shape we want. That's not as like, not a hard line. I wanted something that was a little more organic, if you will, where it kind of flows out. So we can blend all this together then with the planishing hammer where the lines intersect once we get this a little bit better. But that's looking a little better, not as harsh. I'm going to test fit it again and see where we're at, but I think we're doing better. So as you can see, that a line that I drew for a bend right about here lines up with the bend we made on this piece. So that'll kind of flow together. And then this corner just needs to kind of come around a little bit more. I haven't decided what we're going to do in this little corner to connect the two of them. I may need to add a little piece to this one to just dial it all in, but that's just minimal stuff that we can take care of when we get a little further along. But all right, so I got the panel fitted. I got the bump out smoothed out and kind of flowing how I want here now, and looking pretty good. It's hard to see with the glare, but it's actually, there we go. It's actually fitting pretty decent. I ran a couple of these zip screws in. I'm going to probably put one more down here just to tie it in. One more spot, but basically that's all fitting pretty good. It's tight overall. I'm not going real crazy making it ridiculously nice, just kind of something that'll work. But over here what we need to do is kind of, I have it marked off, put a little flange that will follow what that original part I made there, that cover. So I need to make a little flange there so it all kind of follows itself, because right now it's hanging off of the other panel. You can see I can get my finger behind there. So we need to do that, do a little joggle to make that go down, in, and then flange out, and then it'll kind of flow with the rest of the panel. I'm going to probably change the angle of that just a little bit, but I think that'll work. And then I'll get this panel set in, and really I'm making it at 16 gauge. It's pretty darn strong. I don't know if I really need to put a bead in it, to be honest, because since it's 16 gauge and we put that section up top there that's all stretched out, that actually added some strength, and it's such a small panel, I don't think I really need to put a bead in it. It's all getting covered anyways with sound deadening and then a rubber mat over the whole floor probably, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. So I'm going to work on getting that corner there tipped down, and then we should be pretty good for this corner as far as getting it all tied in, and then we can move over to this side, which is not going to be any shaping or anything with the wheel, just more laying out where the pedals swing, and that one should go a little quicker, I think. All right, so I got the driver's side toe board in, nothing real fancy, just put that little bend in it. We had the slots for the pedals and also for the steering box or steering column. Worked out pretty good. And then over on the other side, let's see how it fits the shape of the of that firewall patch we made. So what I think I'm going to do, basically we're at a good stopping point here. What I think I'm going to do is actually work on repairing the rustiness here on the factory tunnel first, and then we're going to work on probably welding some pieces together or making some patches that just fill in the little tiny gaps where the panel isn't. Like we have a little hole you can see right there. So I'm going to add a little piece to one of the sections so that it closes everything up. But overall it's pretty good. The major pieces are done, so we can keep moving forward, and all that stuff we can kind of do in the background when we have a slow day where there's not a lot to do. So that's all I have for this one. Appreciate you guys following along as always. We do videos on Tuesdays, Fridays, Sundays. Appreciate it, guys. Catch you later.